Okay, so Boker Tov, good morning, everyone. I was about to say good evening because we will have a class this evening as well. But today I would like to take one of the Aseret HaDibrot and to show how, I would say how high is Hashem's requirement and demand from us to really be able to fulfill our goal and responsibility of Tzelem Elokim. And really to look at one of the Aseret HaDibrot, which we'll see it's almost impossible to enforce, but we'll see what the Mefarshim has to say, and then we'll go from there. So let me just bring the source sheet. Okay, so one of the Aseret HaDibrot, which is really at the end, it says, Lo tachmod beit re'echa, you should not covet your fellow's house. Lo tachmod eshet re'echa, you should not covet your friend's wife. Ve'avdo, his servant, ve'amato, his maidservant, ve'shoro, and his ox, ve'chamoro, and his donkey, ve'chol asher le're'echa. Okay, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to throw those questions. This is something for you to learn for Shabbat, but this is not the topic for the shiur. Just when you look at this pasuk, you obviously understand that we need to understand why there is so many, I would say, examples. It should say, Lo tachmod kol asher le'recha. Right? You should not covet everything that belongs to your friend. Why do we need to have the house, the wife, the servant, the maidservant, the ox, the donkey? I mean, it seems to be superfluous. We don't need it. You could say, Lo tachmod kol asher le'recha. You should not covet everything that belongs to your friend. But I'm not going to answer this question. It's something for you to think. Why do you think the Torah specify each one of them? And then, when you compare it to Dvarim, to Parashat Vayetchanan, and there is a repetition of this Aseret HaDibrot, there it says what? Lo tachmod eshet re'echa. You see? The eshet re'echa, which is the first thing in Vayetchanan, it's the second thing in Shmot, which is interesting. And then the Torah changes and says, Velo tit'aveh beit re'echa. So the beit re'echa that was in relation to lo tachmod is now lo tit'aveh. You should not have a desire to beit re'echa, to your friend's house. Sadehu, ve'avdo, ve'amato, ve'shoro, ve'chamoro, ve'chol asher le'recha. So here, and this is again, this is not the topic of my shiur, but just for you for some study before Shabbat, here you see that there is an additional property, sadehu, which was not in the first one. Okay, so in Vayetchanan, obviously we have an addition of lo tit'aveh. You should not have a desire. The sequence, the order is different. And also there is another additional word, which is sadehu. Okay, so again, I'm not going to discuss it, just for you to think about. So what am I going to do with you today is I would like to understand something very, very problematic. We say lo tachmod. What does that mean? First, just to define it, before we go into the idea behind it, and what does it mean? How, when you go to someone's Chanukat Habayit, okay? Dedication of the house. He built a new home, beautiful home, and you go to their home. If you go to their home, you say to the Baal Habayit and to the Baalat Habayit, wonderful, welcome, Yishuv Tov, you should have a wonderful life here. And then they show you around. And then you see things that you would love to have in your house. You can afford it. It's not that you're jealous at all. It's just one of those, you go to a smart home and you say, oh my, I wish I would have it. Is that lo tachmod? What does it mean you should not covet? What's the definition? You shouldn't be impressed by anything that is beautiful. You shouldn't comment on it. You shouldn't say in your heart, I wish I can have it. What's the problem with it? So we first and foremost need to define what does it mean lo tachmod, and also to some extent, what does it mean lo tit'aveh? So let's try to see first the definition and then the idea behind it. So if you look at the Mechilta, So the Mechilta is Midrash Tanaim, which was composed in Eretz Israel around the 2nd century. And here is Mechilta de Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So the Mechilta says the following: Lo tachmod, you should not covet, ule'alan hu omer, lo tit'aveh beit re'echa. So the Midrash immediately confronts Parashat Yitro and Parashat Va'etchanan. It says here, it says Lo tachmod, and there it says Lo tit'aveh. Lechayev, so why is that like that? Lechayev al ta'ava bifnei atzma, ve'al chemda bifnei atzma. So it's come to teach you that you have two separate prohibitions, one for tachmod and one for lo tit'aveh. But what does it mean? So the Midrash says, Ezoi ta'ava, haomer levai she, chemda, hakovesh kevushin litlan. Oh, so now, according to the Mechilta, we have a definition. The definition is like that. Ta'ava, lo tit'aveh, ta'ava, desire, is someone who says, I wish that I will have it. Chemda, what is lo tachmod, you should not covet. Hakovesh kivushin litlan, meaning you conspire quietly to try to get what your friends have and bring it to your own ownership. Meaning, we are talking about the conspiracy. I'm not talking about doing it yet. So, lo tit'aveh is what I will call more in your thought or your heart. You would like to have it. And chemda is the extra step. It's not only I wish I would have it, but rather, what can I do to manipulate the situation, to conspire against this guy so I can get it as well. Now, the common denominator between ta'ava and chemda is what? That none of them is yet to get to the action. He didn't do a thing yet. So here, even before we look at any other parshanut, from the definition itself, we can see something incredible. One of the Aseret HaDibrot that we will read this Shabbat and in Va'etchanan Bezrat Hashem is basically telling us what? That Hashem creates a prohibition even in your thoughts and in your heart. Even if you didn't do anything, we know this is totally an exception in Torah law. Every time in Torah law, you are being punished, or there is a prohibition about what? Misdeed. There is aseh, and there is lo ta'aseh. You should not do. Now the Torah is basically telling me how to think, how to feel. This is definitely an extra step, which is interesting. Now, I'm well aware that the Rambam in Yad HaChazaka also has, in Ilchot Tshuva, he has a perek on deot. What should you think? What should you feel? But that all comes from here. Basically, we have an expression that says mishteret machshavot, policing my thoughts. And yes, it seems to be that the Torah is basically telling me to go against my nature. That's why when I presented to you the shiur in my introduction, I told you it is so hard. I mean, I don't know. I know who is on my screen here. Okay, Phil, you are just next to me on my screen. Okay, and I'm looking at you and I'm saying, look, the chair that you sit on seems to be very comfy. I wish I will have it. I'm not saying that I'm going to go to your house to steal it. I'm not going to say that, I wish you shouldn't have it. Nothing. I'm just saying that. So based on that, it's lo tit'aveh. This is almost like a natural thing to say. So how can we understand such a thing? Okay. So let's continue because we only saw one definition. So let's see a little bit more definition. So take a look at the Rambam. So obviously, when you want to find someone who define it well, based on the Gemara, the Rambam was an expert on defining things. So let's see what he says. So Rambam in Ilchot Gzela ve'Aveda says the following. כל החומד עבדו או אמתו או ביתו וכליו של חברו. So everyone who covets his friend's slave, maidservant, house, vessel, utensils that belongs to his friend, או כל דבר שאפשר לו שיקנהו ממנו, or everything else that he can possess from his friend, והכביד עליו ברעים, והפציר בו עד שלקחו ממנו, אף על פי שנתן דמים, הרי זה עובר בלא תעשה שנאמר, לא תחמוד. Okay, before we go to ve'en lokim, I just want to define it. So the Rambam, first and foremost, look at what he says. He says, if you covet your friend's servant, maidservant, his house, his vessel, whatever it is that you can buy from him, and what do? You send your friend to harass your other friend to sell you what you want. So even if you pay your friend full price, but he really did not want to sell it, but you drove him crazy until he will sell it, that will be considered לא תחמוד. ואין לוקין עליו זה, you cannot get lashes for violating this prohibition, מפני שאין בו מעשה, because there is really no action. Why? Because the other friend sold it to me. ואינו עובר בלאו זה עד שיקח החפץ שחמד. Don't violate it until you really take possession over this item that you coveted and you bought. שנאמר, לא תחמוד כסף וזהב עליהם, ולקחת לחימוד שיש בו מעשה. So that's the Rambam. So let me talk to you like that without the associate. Basically, the Rambam says the following. The Rambam ignores coveting of your wife, and he just put what? Servant, maidservant, house, and vessel. Why? Because according to the Rambam's definition, what is lo tachmod? The problem that the Rambam had is the same problem we have. How can you say that there is a prohibition on your thought? Says the Rambam, it's not a thought. It's a thought that leads to an action, that the action itself is not the problem. The process is the problem. Because the Rambam says the following. I coveted Phil's chair. Now, I know Phil is totally not interested in selling his chair. So I call Danny, and I call Harold, and I call Phil, and I say, guys, go to Phil, harass him a bit. Tell him that the Rav really wants his chair, and he wants to buy his chair, and full price, not a problem, but just he really wants your chair. And Phil says, yeah, but Rabbi, I'm just not interested in selling. You can go and buy it in the store. I bought it, it's mine, I love it. And Phil and Harold and Danny are very strong-willed, and they said, no, the Rav told us we need to buy this chair, and the Rav is willing to pay the cost of the chair. And Phil, you're driving him crazy for day 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th day, Phil says, you know what? Okay, it's a 1,000 shekel. Go ahead and sell it. Phil does not want to sell it, but he was so forced to sell it that he did. According to the Rambam, that's lo tachmod. There is nothing wrong with Phil selling it to me. I paid the full price. I didn't get a discount. Phil did not feel that he needs to sell it for less. He sold it for the full price. The problem was the process. Phil was not interested in selling it. I coveted it. I violated it. I violate the prohibition of you should not covet only when I took this chair from Phil and I put it in my house and I sat on it. Now, the Rambam is doing here something very interesting. The Rambam understands that you must have what? A maaseh, an action. Without an action, I cannot punish you. I don't know what you think in your heart. Maybe God can, but the Aseret HaDibrot was given to us, not to God. So therefore, the Rambam must create a reality of what? Of an action. But the action itself, when I see that I pay Phil 1,000 shekels and I take the chair, if you don't know anything about the process that I sent Shlosha Malachim, Phil, Harold, and Danny to persuade Phil to sell it to me, you will say, okay, Phil sold the rabbi a chair. But when you know the process, you will say Phil was totally not interested. Now, the Rambam, interestingly enough, omitted your friend's wife. Why? You can't buy her. I mean, I'm not asking here, okay? I'm not asking, I'm just stating, okay? I'm stating you cannot buy your friend's wife. So therefore, the Rambam ignores it. Now, how is the Rambam's definition applies on your friend's wife? I don't know. According to the Rambam's definition, it's almost impossible for me to understand unless you want to tell me that what you do when you covet your friend's wife, you send your other friends to basically convince the husband, that his wife is not a good wife and whatever, and he will divorce her, and then you will take her. Okay, but that's a little bit, a crooked way to think about things. But still, that's what the Rambam says. Now, before I open it to any other questions, let's just see the Ravid. The Ravid, Baal HaAsagot, Rabbi Avraham ben David, so he says the following, Asagat HaRavid. Okay, you see, so he quotes the Rambam, Amar Avraham, so the Ravid says, Velo Amar Rote Ani. Here we have a huge dispute between the Rambam and the Ravid. The Ravid says, what the Rambam says in terms of definition, I agree with you. However, if Phil, I'm just picking on you, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If Phil says, you know what, after Phil Field and Harold and Danny drove you crazy about selling the chair to me, you say, you know what, I'm willing to do it. Not a problem. Here, give me the money and take the chair. You know what, I'll buy a new chair. According to the Ravid, you are not violating Lo Tachmod because you agreed, you gave your consent. So now, if you stop here for a second, and I know it's a little heavy, it's a little hakira, but it's only 9:36 in the morning, everyone had his coffee and a breakfast, so you can think. So the thing is like that. What's the debate between the Rambam and the Ravid? The Rambam and the Ravid are dealing with if at the end the sale was with the owner's consent, even though the process was terrible. They harassed you and they convinced you to do something that you don't want. But at the end, you said, okay, according to the Ravid, is not Lo Tachmod. You didn't violate anything. I'm not saying that you get shlishi, but you're not a terrible person. According to the Rambam, even if you said, okay with the sale, you are still over, you still violated Lo Tachmod. Now, let's pause here for a second. With what opinion do you feel that you can identify with, the Ravid or the Rambam? And obviously, why? Okay, so we have Paul and then Phil.
I agree with the Rambam because it shows a bad character trait.
Okay, so you say because the process was terrible, even though, maybe Phil just said, yes, just in order to just let me go, leave me alone, but I would not do that if you will not harass me like that. Okay, very good. So it talks about the character. Phil?
2 points. There's a word admire. I don't think that if you see your friend's house or any of his things, say, that's very nice. I wish I had one like that. You admire it. That's Tachmod.
That's Lo Tit'aveh. According to the Mechilta, not saying according to everyone, according to the Mechilta.
But you're allowed to admire it and congratulate him on what a beautiful chandelier he has. Doesn't mean I want it. So I think there's a difference between desire and admire. That's one thing. The other is the one about pressure. It's interesting. I'll give it to you in modern context. Jews were driven out of a big section of a city in the United States. This is true. How? They were told the blacks are taking over the neighborhood and everything else. They were pressured and they got paid. But that is tava, and that is business. It's not chairs. So it's a very important halacha. That means you can see, hey, he has a good idea. I got to steal it from him. So
okay, very good. We can definitely have modern applications, but still, do you identify more with the Rambam or the Ravid?
love them both.
Okay, so you're going to have a third opinion. Okay, you are a good Jew. Very good. Okay, let's hold on. Yes, Harold.
All right. So I would agree. I think the Rambam is more on point with the intent of the Torah law. The Torah law, whether it's tachmod or ta'ava, I think the intent is those emotions or those that a person has a lust. If somebody lusts for something, then you're likely to do it. You're likely to engage in behaviors that are not good behavior that will ultimately lead you down the wrong path. Whether it leads you to actually, engaging with someone else's wife is another story, but you will engage in behaviors that are not correct. So I think that you have to understand what tachmod and titaveh really mean in terms of intent and the end result of those. I don't know, they're not really emotions, but whatever they are. I think to me that's what the Rambam is saying, and I think that's how he understands the pasuk, which is I think how I understand the pasuk.
Okay, so you have an ilan gadol hitalot bo, so that's for sure. I would just say that it seems to be, don't forget, I brought the Mechilta for a reason. The Mechilta is 2nd century, Rambam is 12th century, okay? So what we see from here is that you see an evolution. The Mechilta really talked about no action whatsoever, a desire and a conspiracy, but it's all in what I will call the preparation for something. The Rambam talks about real action because he is a law codifier. He needs to define it by law. And I can't punish you for thinking A or B. There's one thing, only one thing that we know that Hashem punish is machshava shel avodah zara. Okay, even machshava ra'a metzarfa lemaaseh. Now, Harold, I just would like to comment on one thing that you said, you little bit jumped the gun, is that you already mentioned in your sentence some kind of the reasons behind it. Meaning you think that the Rambam codified the way it is because really these feelings basically will lead to an action. Now, I would just want to comment one thing before we continue, is that we do know that we have, I would say, negative feelings that we know that led to terrible events. If we start with Joseph's brothers, Vayekanu bo Echav, and we know what happened. We know with Achav and Izevel, when Achav coveted the kerem, and Izevel got it from him by killing Navot. So we do know that sometimes when it starts with just coveting and little bit of a desire, it can lead to what? To something else. The problem with that, I'm already saying that. The problem with that is that if we say that lo tachmod or lo titaveh are basically being punishable because of what they are about to lead, you are basically saying to me that one of Aseret HaDibrot is not an independent commandment. It's only what? A prohibition that might lead you to something else, that it is punishable. So if I sat there and I desired Phil's chair all day long, but I didn't do a thing about it, so I didn't violate anything. So we need to be very clear and be very careful, because we have this inclination to say, you covet and then you can murder someone, you can steal, you can do whatever. Then the problem is that will be a very different commandment from any other things. Now, none of you jumped and say, Rabbi, 1 second, the first commandment is also a bit strange. The first דיבר in עשרת הדיברות is what? Be careful in your answer.
Anochi Hashem Elokecha.
It's about belief.
Oh, very good.
Hi,
So is there any action here?
Now, only your life.
No, but I'm saying,
No.
do you need to do something? You just need to think about it. You need to believe in it. That should obviously affect the way you live your life, they affect your mindset. But there is no, I mean, לא תישא את שם השם אלוקיך לשווא, it's a negative prohibition, זה לא תעשה, right? You should not say the name of Hashem in vain. Okay. Keep or remember the Shabbat. Yes. Okay, good, right? You shouldn't kill, you should honor your parents, you shouldn't steal. Okay, all of those things are actions.
Right.
They themselves are prohibited.
But
But the first commandment, which is about belief, and the last commandment, which is lo tachmod, are very interesting.
No.
We are so used to the translation, the 10 commandments, that we look for a commandment in each one of them. But the Hebrew biblical expression is aseret hadvarim, or aseret hadibrot. Dvarim and dibrot are not commandments. What is davar?
Statement. Word.
Statement.
Statement.
Statement, things, which means can be what I will call the principle of our religion. Not necessarily 10 commandments. We have 613 commandments. What's so special with 10? It's the 10 sayings, 10 statements. And then you can talk about, yes, in the statements, you do have, obviously you have actions. You can have action, and you can definitely have what? You can have thought. This is what basically shape our religious experience. So if we have that in mind, so we shouldn't be that surprised that, you know, the first one is like almost like an introduction. Without believing in God, all the other commandments or sayings are meaningless. Think about it. If you don't believe in God and you do all the other things, you might be a good person, but you are not doing that from a God's perspective. So the idea is that we might find commandments or saying or statements that are not defined as what? As a commandment per se. Now, and this is one of the most important things here. That's why I brought you the Mechilta. The Mechilta tried to define lo tachmod and lo titaveh, but the Mechilta defined it as what? Thoughts, feelings. The Mechilta did not have any problem with it. Why? Because the Mechilta understood that we are talking about things that are not necessarily should be punishable. It's just Hashem's requirement, demand, expectation from us to behave in a certain way. The Rambam, when you codify law, you cannot say it's about your feelings. You're going to be punishable. Or you need to define it as a commandment. You need to define it as a law. You know, if you say in a book of laws, if you say, I expect you, you know, I would really love for you, you know, to just do that. Some people will do, some people will not do. So when I need to put it in law, sorry, I need to codify it clearly. So we had that point, and we had the machloket between the Rambam and the Rabbi. Now let's continue. So, sorry, just 1 second. Now, the Rabbi has another issue with the Rambam, but I'm not going to discuss it. Let's see the Magid Mishnah. The Magid Mishnah says, כל החומד, זה מבואר במחילתא, ואמרים להם פרק כמה דמציע, מור ואמר דמי כיהיבנה, ואמר אכא עבר בלא תחמוד, על מה שקונה בדמים, כל זמן שלא היה בדעת המוכר למכור, וזה לקחו שהפציר בו, כמו שכתב הרב עבר משום לא תחמוד. So, the Maggid Mishnah says, look, the Rambam has a source. What's the source? The source is that when people basically give money, they think that, they didn't do anything wrong. But the Gemara basically says, no, even if you gave money, if the seller didn't want really to sell it to you, but he just did it because you harassed him, so you are over on lo tachmod. But the Rabbi says, no, דעת הרב ז"ל, מפני שאם אמר רוצה אני מקחו קיים, זה לא גרם מתליו וזבין, זה זבינה. Which means, the Maggid Mishnah says the following, and this is really a class about human psychology. When you go ahead and you harass the guy to sell something to you that he really did not have any kavanah, any intent to sell, but he did sell it to you, full price, and you paid. Do you feel bad about it? Most people will not feel bad about it. And you know why? I paid. What do you want from me? I didn't get a discount. I didn't pay less. I didn't harass him to the extent that I put a gun to his head. Yeah, I convinced him, I drove him crazy, but at the end, he sold it. He's weak. It's good business. I took advantage. I'm very consistent. I'm very strong-willed. I wanted his property, and I made him sell it to me. I paid full price. So I don't feel bad about myself. Says the Rambam, you should. You just violated lo tachmod. The Rabbi said something else. There is a famous Gemara in Baba Batra that says, what should be the din if talyuhu vezabin? We are not talking about persuasion. We're not talking about harassment. We are talking about life and death issues, which means talyuhu, you hang the guy and you tell him, you should sell me your house. And if not, I'm just, moving the chair, and then you're going to be hanged to death. And he says, okay, just I'm selling the house, full price, and he gets paid. Do you think that sale is valid? The answer is yes. The Gemara says, Talyu vezabin, zbina, which means if you sold it that way, you are fine. The sale is a sale. Says the Rabbi, what can you learn from here? What can you derive from here? You can derive from here that when you gave your consent, I don't care how, but you gave your consent and you got full price, there is no lo tachmod. And many times the Gemara says, lo tachmod le'inshei belo dami mashma, which means when you ask a person, what is lo tachmod? You ask a person on the street, what is lo tachmod? Lo tachmod is that you coveted something and you got it without paying for that, which is called, by the way, stealing, not coveting. Meaning, and this is where we get a little bit into the idea behind it and what God expects us to do, which is incredible. People think that money will basically cover it all. If you gave money, so it's fine. Who cares about the process? I gave the money. What do you want from me? But the Rambam says, based on the Mechilta, he upgraded the Mechilta. The Mechilta stayed in the below action level. The Rambam made it an action. But the Rambam takes the Mechilta as a base. And he basically says, that's my source, that what? That even if he sold it to you and he gave his consent to you, if the process was harassment and it's all derived from coveting, that will be considered as lo tachmod. I don't know. This is I think it's a fascinating machloket between the Rambam and the Rabbi. And there are Gemarot that support both of them. And really, you think about the human psyche and you ask yourself, and this is a question that we need to ask ourselves, is the Torah expect us something that is inhuman? Or does the Torah expect us to have a better society? Meaning, are we so bad that we don't even recognize the problem that we cause? Or we are okay, just the Torah wants us to be more than just okay. You with me with the question? This is a philosophical question, which means, is that normal for us to believe that even if I harassed you, I'm not talking about beating you up, yes, just harassed you, convinced you, persuade you to sell something to me that you didn't want to sell, but you did, and I paid you full price. Can I justify my action by saying it's good business? I wanted your house. I want to expand my house. You are just a perfect victim because I know you are a little weak. And I took advantage, but I paid you. I paid you exactly the amount. So I didn't do anything wrong. And it's okay. It's human nature. It's open market. It's fair competition. Or should I say, no, this is wrong. This is what other people do. If someone tells you, I don't want to sell you, you should say, I respect it, I understand, thank you. If you're interested in selling it, just please know that I'm interested in buying it. Now, this is a major issue. And you know why it's a major issue? Because it happens every day. Modern life business is, how do you convince someone to sell you something or to buy something, even if he or she do not want it? That's a major share in business of today's life. A lot of it happens where? In real estate. How do you convince someone with a great property, a lousy house, and you want that property in order to have a high rise? Okay, you harass the guy. You pay him the full price, but you harass the guy in order to get access to his property. All the things that we have here is trying to convince you that you need something that you really don't need. So the idea here is now, we're not talking only just about, the Rambam and the Ravid. We are talking about a very large and extended question. What are what I will call the fair and the divine laws in creating business, in making business? So I will just leave it as a question because I think we can bring Gemarot, we can bring sources from here to there, and we can find all sorts of things. But I really do believe that this little machloket between the Rambam and the Ravid, we can expand it to much larger questions. Okay, so let's leave that.
Excuse me, are you extending that to advertising, which purpose is basically to make you buy something that you don't want?
So yes, to some extent. Now, I understand free markets, and I understand that the advertisement is to also let you know that it exists. At the end of the day, and this is where the problem is, at the end of the day, no one puts a gun to your head. However, sometimes the social pressure is so difficult to resist that it's almost a gun to your head. But at the end of the day, the marketing people will tell you, yes, we are trying to persuade you. We're trying to convince you. We're trying to even harass you. You just go. Now they created, I saw an article that they created some kind of an app that if you are in a grocery store, okay, and they see what you want, they will tell you that there is something else in another shelf which you can buy, which is better, okay? And they will follow you, okay? And they will send it to you 10 times until you're probably going to say, what? Nada, must speak, okay? You know what? I will just give you another example. What What are the items that are next to the cashiers in the grocery store?
Oh,
Candies, a lot of candies. Why? No, that's pretty simple. You don't need to be a marketing genius, because when you go to the grocery store, you go with your children, and after an hour and a half in the grocery store, in the big grocery store, okay, when you didn't find what you want, and the kids are already upset and they lost their patience. So when they go to the cashier, obviously they are start putting pressure on whom? On their parents. I just need one candy. I was such a good boy. I was such a good girl. I want one candy, two candies, three candies, whatever. This is basically creating what? Creating a reality that you just say, leave me alone. Just take it and just be quiet. And you will not going to go to the shelf, that are basically 50 meters from you to buy a bag, which will be cheaper. They will sell it as individuals, so you will buy more and you will pay more. So is that fair? On one hand, they can say, yes, we offer our merchants, and if you don't want to buy it, we didn't force you to buy it. If you are not strong enough with your children to say, we don't buy it, it's your problem, not mine. However, do we say, no, it's just not fair to put, quote unquote, that obstacle, okay, in front of people that really cannot resist. So we can obviously expand our questions to so many different areas. And I don't know. I mean, on one hand, we do know that the economical system of today is very different than what used to be in the 2nd century, or even in the 12th century, and even in the 20th century, okay? The 21st century shopping experience and market experience is very different. And I think we all know it. We cannot ignore it. But in terms of the root question, is paying justify the process? If the fact that I paid full price justify the process I got to the end result, which is you selling me something, is a process can be viewed as lo tahmod, or it's just good business. Okay, so now, yes, Phil, just a short one.
Yeah. Basically, these are the problems of business. And the only way you can have a regular business is to say you've signed, that's the answer. But then you get into questions of fraud. I may not disclose everything to you. So it's an open question all the time. There's a property for sale. You're bidding for it. I know something about the property you don't know. I say, I'll give you your price, fine, because I know it's worth more than that. This is the whole area, never mind shopping centers. This is the story of life today. So what I referred to earlier was about Boston. The whole Jewish community of Boston, the first community, was driven out. I paid full, but the Jews went out, were forced out of it. I don't know if you're familiar with it. There are books written on the subject. It's exactly a class. They paid money, but the blacks came, but the banks did not want to finance this, but finance that. You're dealing with the whole question of honesty beyond sort of shopping centers. So I think that the Serta Dibrot on that subject are magnificent.
Thank you. Phil, what year was it in Boston?
I'm talking about Boston, I'm talking about in the early 50s.
In the what?
The early 50s.
Early 50s. Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just, I'm interested, so I'll Google it
The
and
Jews,
see what I can find.
that was Rabbi Soloveitchik's territory, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he went out early. But it was terrible because the banks and others conspired against the Jewish community. They pushed everything you said, and not about candies and children, but about living conditions. And they drove out old Jews.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. So now, because our time is a little bit short, so let's see. I want to, here we go. Here, the Rambam, so he spoke about lo tachmod, so now the Rambam defined lo titaveh. So he says, kol hamitaveh, beito, ishto vekelav shel chavero, someone has a desire for his friend's wife, utensils, or his home, וכל כיוצא בהן משאר דברים, and everything else that is not on the list, שאפשר לו לקנותן ממנו, that he can buy from him. I'm not talking about his wife, I'm talking about his home, his vessels, and any other types of property. כיוון שחשב בליבו, the minute he thought in his heart, איך יקנה דבר זה, how he will buy that thing, ונפתה ליבו בדבר, and his heart will really follow this thought, עבר בלא תעשה. So he violated a negative prohibition, לא תתאווה, ואין תאווה אלא בלב בלבד. The desire is in your heart. So, but what kind of a desire? So that may be what Phil says, the difference between desire and admire, which means the desire is not only to think in my heart, but I am starting to what? To be sick over it, okay? To admire is, wow, this is really beautiful. I might even want it, but you know what? If I have it, I have it. If I don't have it, I don't have it, but it's really beautiful. So I'm going just to express it. I'm just going to say, this is a beautiful piece of jewelry. Wonderful. But if I what? You see what the Rambam says? ונפתה ליבו בדבר. What is נפתה ליבו בדבר? I explain it, and by the way, I'm open for other explanations. נפתה ליבו is just, you become obsessed with it. I'm not talking about stealing it, but you become obsessed with it. It's become your goal. I need this piece of jewelry, and if not, I don't know what I'm going to do with me. So the thing is, that will be lo tit'aveh. Now, the Rambam continues. He's just talking about the ta'amei ha'isur. So the Rambam says, "Ata'ava mevi'a lidei chimud." The desire brings you to what? To coveting. Ve'achimud mevi lidei gezel. And coveting leads you to what? To stealing. Lama? Why? She'im lo ratzu ha'ba'alim limkor. Because if what? If the owners refuse to sell it, אף על פי שהרבה להם בדמים והפציר ברעים, even despite what? You trying to offer a lot of money and you send your friends to try to convince them, יבוא לידי גזל, they will come to what? To stealing, שנאמר וחמדו בתים וגזלו, they coveted homes and they stole it. ואם עמדו הבעלים בפניו להציל ממונם או מנעו לגזול, and if the owners will stand up and say, no, you're not going to take it for me, I don't want your money, take your money, I don't want to sell it to you, יבוא לידי שפיכות דמים. He will come to murder. תלמד ממעשה אחאב ונבות. So the Rambam says something very interesting, which we need to obviously analyze. The Rambam is saying what we said before, that the sayings, the statements are not exactly an independent statement. Lo tit'aveh is really the beginning, the desire. Lahmod is the conspire. Okay, so you have desire and then the conspiracy, meaning you start sending the friends and you start sending the money and you tell him, sell it to me, sell it to me. Now, by doing this too, you still, it's not punishable. It is, yes, it's thought, it's process, and we don't like it. You're a negative person. But our concern that this is the root problem for what? For lo tirtzach. Or lo tigzol. And we have a story for that. Achab would go to his yard and he would see the vineyard that belonged to Navot. And he says, I would like it. So he went to Navot and he says, look, I would like to buy it. Navot says, I'm not selling. It's my ancestral vineyard. It's mine. It's for generations. I'm not doing it. And Achab became sick over it. And his wife, Jezebel, says to him, what are you doing? You are the king. You can do whatever you want. So she gets two witnesses, false witnesses that testify falsely against Navot that he blasphemed God's name and the king's name and whatever. So they obviously killed him, executed him. And who gets the property? Achav. And he's very happy. Who is not happy? God and the prophet Elijah. Elijah goes to Achav and he gives it to him. And he cursed him, he cursed Jezebel. No, okay, you all know the story. But the Rambam says, what is the cause? The cause was that basically Ahav desired it, conspired to get it, and even when he offered the pay and everything, when the owner said no, you become so tehitzt about it, you became so obsessed with it, that you will do whatever it takes to get it, including stealing and murdering. And that's the problem. So if I look at the 10 statements, it's interesting. According to the Rambam, lo tachmod, lo tit'aveh, lo tachmod, lo tirtzach. Interesting. By the way, you can look at the 10 statements in so many different ways, and the Rishonim did it. It's beautiful. It's about time we are mature enough. We don't, need to only remember what our, kindergarten teacher told us about the 10 commandments. I think we can be a little bit more sophisticated. There is ways to look at the 10 statements in different ways, to divide them into different categories also. Not only aseh velo ta'aseh and things like that, but much more than that. But the thing is that what we have here, according to the Rambam, yes, this commandment is a prohibition because it can lead to something disastrous. And that's fine with the Rambam, not a problem, especially again, when you see that as 10 sayings, aseret hadibrot. Now, take a look at someone from the 1st century, Philo. Philo is an interesting fellow, a Jew in Alexandria, definitely someone who is very smart. He is what we call pre-Chazal, but he brings traditions from probably Beit Sheni, from the Second Temple, and sometimes Chazal quote him or adapt his things without mentioning really his name so much, but take a look. Philo says the following, לבסוף אוסר הוא לא לחמוד. So at the end, that last tense saying is you should not covet. ביודעו, because he knows, כי ממרא החימוד וחורש רעה. Says the last statement is about you conspiring evil. הרי כל ההתפעלויות הנפש קשות שמטלטלות הן ומזעזעות אותה בניגוד לטבע, ואינן מניחות לה להיות בריאה, אך קשה מכולן החימוד. He is giving you here a 101 psychology class. He says, we know that we have different midot, different attributes and traits that really cause us to be sick. I'm talking about emotionally, spiritually, not talking about sick physically. But the one midah, one trait, which is the most awful of them all, is chimud, is coveting. Why? שכן, כל התפעלות אחרת הבאה מבחוץ, אינה כפי הנראה מרצוננו, ואילו החימוד לבדו, ראשיתו, בתוכנו ומרצוננו הוא. He says many of the other traits that are negative traits, they come externally, they come and they can go. But chimud is come from within us. We want it. Think about it. For example, let's talk about anger, kas. Okay, so why am I angry? Because you did something to me. So it's external. Sadness. That might be, a very negative trait. If you are already sad, it's because I saw something that made me very sad. Coveting, it didn't come because you did something. It started because I decided I want something else that you have. So it's come from within. And because it's come from within, it's very strong. It's overwhelming. Says Philo, בשעה שנתן אדם אל ליבו טובה שאינה נוכחת. So the minute that you decide in your heart to take something that is not present in your home, ושואף לזכות, when you aspire to achieve it, הוא דוחף את נפשו למרחקים, he pushes himself to nowhere, like to everywhere, to the corner of the earth, ומותך עד מאוד מתוך כמיהה לגעת בטובה הנחשפת. You just stretch yourself to the extent that you cannot even imagine in order to touch this dream that you have. להוט לתופסה, אך אינו מסוגל להגיע אליה. You are determined to catch it, but you can't reach it. ומצבו כשל הרודף אחרי הניסוג מפניו במהירות קטנה משל הבורח, אך במרץ שלא ינוצח. This is unbelievable. It basically says it's like you chasing someone who you basically think you can catch him or her, but he or she runs a little faster than you, which means you will never catch it. How frustrating it is. And therefore, if you're running after someone that you cannot catch, what would you do? You will take a gun and shoot him in his leg so you can run faster, right? Basically, says Philo, and this is, by the way, not like the Rambam. The Rambam says what? The Rambam says the problem with Lo Tachmod and Lo Titaveh is what? That it will lead you to what? To something disastrous. Murder, stealing, whatever. Philo's perspective is different. He says it's not about what you will do to someone else. It's what you will do to whom? To yourself. Very good. You will destroy yourself. By the way, we also see it from Achav. When Achav had this coveting for Navot's vineyard, he became sick. And he didn't eat and he didn't drink until his wife says, "What are you doing? What's your problem? Why are you sick?" And he told her, and that was the end of it. She did it for him. But basically what Philo says, which is, by the way, the benefit with Philo is that Lo Tachmod is not just a prohibition, so you will not do something else. By itself, it's an independent commandment. Basically, Hashem says to us, I'm telling you, don't covet, because if you will destroy yourself. I think it's a beautiful interpretation, which, by the way, I think we can agree with it. The human psyche is such that when people don't get what someone else has, they become sick over it. And they destroy their life, leave alone that they don't appreciate what they have. I'm not giving here the appreciation talk. It just, they destroy themselves. They don't see anything in their life that is worthwhile besides what the thing that they don't have. Yes, Phil.
That jealousy.
He does not call it jealousy. He called it Lo Tachmod. It's interesting. In this entire discussion, we don't have the word jealousy. Very interesting. And I will tell you that the word jealousy exists in the Torah with Joseph's brothers. Vayekanu bo echav.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's not biblical, but it's not mentioned here. It's very interesting. And I'll tell you, according to Philo, at least, kin'ah is because it's probably a little bit more external than Lo Tachmod.
Yeah.
Lo Tachmod is really, I'm talking about, when someone is obsessed. I think that probably will be the best word. Is obsessed with what? Is obsessed with something that he or she does not have, and they will do whatever it takes to get it. Now, when they do whatever it gets, take it, and they don't, one of two things can happen. The Rambam says they will just murder this guy and take it.
Good.
Or they will steal it. Philo says, no, I'm not sure that they're going to steal or murder it, but they will murder themselves.
Well,
They will not be able to overcome that desire. They will get sick over it.
So under what heading would you put jealousy?
I don't know. I'm debating with myself. I don't know. I don't know if that's part of.
But kinah is used positively for Pinchas.
That's also true.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Hashem is called El Kana. Right? Hashem is quote unquote jealous, a jealous God when we worship idols.
That jealousy, for sure, God does not is not jealous in the sense that we have it in English. I can guarantee it. He just thinks it's the wrong thing for us to want. He is not jealous. Jealous
No,
means
jealous, it means
I want
vengeful.
what you have.
No, but I'm saying the jealousy that when we say kel kana,
Yeah.
it means vengeful. When you worship other gods, God is like jealous for his name. Like jealousy. That's what Jacques basically says about Pinchas. There is jealousy. With kin'ah, there is what we call jealousy, or there's another word for jealousy, and it's not coveting. I forgot what the word. But the idea is what? Is that there is, and now again, I don't know if we have enough information even to define what's the difference, okay, between jealousy and coveting. Desire, I think we understand. Desire is the want. Now, I might say that jealousy is why you have it, not necessarily why I don't have it, but why you have it.
Envy.
That's why
Envy, thank you.
and I don't.
The what?
Envy is a good word.
Yeah, envy is the word. I think why you have it and I don't, or why you have it, period.
No, jealousy.
That's why I don't.
Jealousy.
Some people
Jealousy
don't.
Why him and not me? I wanted to.
I don't know, but I'm saying that sometimes some people are not why I don't have it and he has it, but why he has it, period. I don't want it, but I don't think he should have it. Okay, I don't think he deserves it. So we can go from now until tomorrow to try to define it. But what I wanted to show you is the Rambam versus Philo. Philo basically says it will destroy you, which by the way, and historically speaking, I think that Philo is much closer to the Mechilta that came century after him than the Rambam. If you remember the Mechilta, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, first source that we opened up with, said what? That lo titaveh is, I wish I should have it, and lo tachmod is the conspiring, but no action whatsoever. Philo does not talk about any action. He talks about internally destructive traits. The Rambam took the Mechilta, but he played with it. He put the Mechilta in a process, he called it a process, but then he defined it as an action. So I would say that I think the Mechilta, and this is now historically speaking, I think the Mechilta maintains a tradition, an ancient tradition, that Philo also testify about it, that lo tachmod and lo titaveh has nothing to do with action. It's nothing to do with action, and it's nothing to do with what it would lead you to do. It's an independent statement by God telling the Jewish people, I want you to live healthy, moral, ethical life. Don't kill yourself over things that you will not have. You shouldn't covet. You shouldn't have those desires. How? Train yourself. Basically, when you see something, so as Phil suggested, you can admire it, but you don't need to feel anything towards it because it's not yours. And it might never be yours. I'm not talking about being a shmate and not have any ambition to try to, expand your wealth and to have nice things. I'm not talking about it. But don't obsess over it in a way that will become overwhelming and will take over your life. So what I want to suggest, and with that we will end, because we'll keep those sources for Bezrat Hashem, maybe Vayet Hanan. But the thing is that I think we have something so beautiful in the Torah in terms of the discussion of real, healthy, normal life, which we in the 21st century suffer so much from. I mean, Jack, you talked about advertisement. I mean, the social media is an expert as an enticer for what? For coveting and desire.
Greed is another word.
The what?
Greed, G-R-E-E-D. Greed.
Greed.
I don't know why I can. Greed. But it's greed. It's true. but it's always, always. I mean, this is the beauty of Apple marketing. Okay, you have Apple 14, iPhone 14. The 14X has a little bit something better. You definitely need it. What do you mean you don't need it? I don't know even how to open it, but you need it. And then there is, iPhone 14B, which has another feature. Now, those things are what we call business today. But the thing is, again, no one tells you not to get it. But when people become obsessed with it and that takes over their life, says Philo, that's probably the worst curse on a person. So I think that this commandment, or this saying, this statement, this fundamental of lo tahmod teaches us a lot. First and foremost, human psyche. How should we think? How should we try to construct our life? That it's not only about teaching about our appreciation to what we have, but also what should be our reaction to what other people have. And how much what other people have influence me. And I think those questions are serious questions, especially to our society, and in the time period that we live in. So that's for today, for this morning. I see many of you this evening, Bezrat Hashem. Everyone have a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Shikoach.
Thank you.